A good day. A new pillar has been discovered at Karahan Tepe, which is of great importance. The reason being is that it has a face on the front side of its T-shaped termination, and this is significant, as we shall see. Now, it comes from Karahan Tepe, which has been under investigation and exploration since 2019. You can see here the big elliptical enclosure known as Structure AD, which includes arguably the oldest rock architecture in human history. Next door to it is the so-called Pillar Shrine, Structure AB, where you have these 10 pillars actually cut out the bedrock, which were left in place as the actual enclosure was created. And then an 11th pillar actually put in this curved thing right in the middle that the sun is shining on now. Plus you have this giant human head at the back. And I said this was found in 2019, 2020. And one of the most recent discoveries there was in 2023, an enclosure on the top of the hill at Karahan Tepe. They found this fella here, who's 7.5 feet tall, anatomically correct, with mullet, face, eyes, nose, mouth, ribs, arms, and hands, and obviously with his privates on view. And this guy is a giant, no question about that. And he was found in 2023. And the new enclosure that includes this T-pillar with the face is in view here. Now, as to where it's actually located, it's very close to behind and just uphill of Structure AH, which you can see in the frame here. Now, I was there just a few weeks ago and took this photograph. They've actually reconstructed the T-shaped heads here, and these give you actually a very good picture of what exactly these terminations were like, basically. And as I say, these pillars can range anything from about 1.5 meters in height to 5 meters, so in other words about 18 feet. And there are hundreds and hundreds of them that have been found so far at every Taş Tepe site, whether it be Göbekli Tepe, Sayburç, Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, Ayanlar, but also Sayburç as well. You know, dozens of them are being uncovered. In fact, it's the signature of Taş Tepe, T-shaped pillars. But usually these pillars do not have faces. What they do have, and this one's damaged, it's at Karahan Tepe, very close to where this new one was found. You can see these arms, these bent arms that come down and stretch right the way around to the front narrow edges of it. These end in hands with fingers that are usually 5 but can be as much as 8. Why exactly? No one is particularly, understanding of what's going on. This is arguably one of the most finely finished of all of the T-pillars. It's Pillar 18 in Enclosure D at Göbekli Tepe. You can see how these hands end. You can see above them these vertically hanging hems of a garment, which could be something like a robe, but it could also be a stole, like priests wear. You can see a belt that's festooned with glyphs, what we call H glyphs and C glyphs. There's also a belt buckle, which is like a U shape with a circular device with 3 prongs going upwards that I interpreted in Göbekli Tepe Genesis of the Gods as a comet symbol. And you can see below that comet symbol what appears to be a fox pelt loincloth. Now, these have been found also at Sayburç now, and as well as at Karahan itself. Foxes are implied by the shape of them, but it's very clear that some at Karahan and Sayburç may well be those of leopards. So in other words, some kind of cult involving a leopard and almost certainly the fox. Now, the other interesting thing is, and this is another picture from one of the new enclosures at Karahan Tepe that's only recently been exposed, is that some of the T-pillars are not T-pillars. They're like inverted L's. You can see here the one on the left hasn't really got an extension out of the back. It's just got this front extension. You also find that at pillars at Sayburç as well. Various have been found there, and we'll come on to the symbolism of that in a minute. In fact, let's do it now, because the archaeologists believe that what you're looking at with the T-pillars are simply roof supports. They have no obvious symbolic value. In other words, the fact that you have anthropomorphic features means nothing. And yet we can see from this small statue that was found at a place called Kisalak in the extreme northern part of Şanlıurfa province. In fact, it was actually over the border in the province of Adıyaman. It was found in a farmer's field. And there were scatterings of flints and things like that that suggest they could have been a Taş Tepe site in the area, but it was never properly investigated. But this is a tiny statue. I mean, it's probably only about half a metre in height. But what you can clearly see here is the bent arms. And those arms are actually pulling up a garment to reveal a hole in the front narrow edge, which you can't really see here, which could be where a penis was positioned, or it could actually represent, a vagina. We don't know, but it probably is some kind of genitalia. But you have here what appears to be an extension out the back, which probably is hair or some kind of headdress. And at the front, what's clear is that the extension coming out is what appears to be like a jaw, an extended jaw, and an extended brow ridge as well. And it's my opinion that what you're actually looking at with the T-pillars in their more abstract forms is exactly that. Extended jaws out the front and elongated heads at the back, with hair, probably hair that's been bound up, maybe braided, and contained within some kind of bun or headdress or something. That is what the rear extension of the T-pillars actually shows. And the other thing is that until recently, and they've actually been taken out, at the Archaeological Museum at Şanlıurfa, there were tiny little T-pillars about this size. And to me, they're almost like sort of pilgrim souvenirs of people going to Taş Tepe sites and doing whatever they're doing, and then taking away one of these little carved statues to continue the connection or the link with the place. And this makes it very, very clear that we're not just simply dealing with roof supports. These anthropomorphic pillars represent something. And in my books, what I've said is that they probably represent either revered or great ancestors, or they could represent celestial beings. In other words, beings that are able to travel between one world and the next. In fact, obviously, both of them can be exactly the same or work hand in hand. But Klaus Schmidt, in his book on Göbekli Tepe, which I think came out in 2012, he said that the T-pillars represent the great ancestors of the builders of Göbekli Tepe, and he actually identified them with what he referred to as the Anunnaki. This means the people of the sky, or those of the sky, a word that much later became Anunnaki in Babylonian tradition. And I think this is a reference to some kind of shamanic elite, like a ruling body that came in and coordinated the construction of the Taş Tepe sites. And as to where they come from, I deal with that in great detail within books like Göbekli Tepe, Genesis of the Gods, the Cygnus Key, Denisovan Origins, etc. And this was the image that my good friend Russell Hussein did, based on all of the anatomical evidence that we could find of those that we saw as the precursors of the builders of the Tash Tepe sites. These were epi-Paleolithic peoples from the steppe, from the Black Sea region, who go generally under the name of the Swiderians. They also known as the Epigravatians, and we think that they had a heavy hand in the development of what was going on in eastern and southeastern Turkey, probably as much as 10 to 10,500 BC. So anyway, we think that what you're looking at with this new pillar is either a representative of a human shaman. That's if it has a mouth, and I used these words from my good friend and colleague Debbie Cartwright, who's written about this subject on Facebook today. But if there is no mouth, then the chances are that this is a much more celestial, guardian or being, a messenger, as she says, between the three worlds: the upper world, the lower world, and the middle world, which is the physical world in which we live. And as evidence, she cites the so-called Balikliöl statue, which has been popularly known as Urfa Man. And this was found at the site of a Tash Tepe enclosure in the heart of the ancient city of Şanlıurfa back in 1993. Now, it's 6.5 feet tall, so roughly 2 meters tall. And Debbie will be going into this in great detail in her lecture at Origins on November the 1st in Pewsey in Wiltshire in southern England. But basically what she points out right from the word go is that this guy has no mouth. And that is deliberate, because we know that these people can create figures with mouths, so that if they haven't got mouths, there's a very specific reason behind that. And that is, as Debbie's put out on her post today, that it's because communication with them is not direct. It has to be via something else, whether it be running waters or fire, something that can produce sound that becomes like a secondary means of communication with these entities. But as I say, that's something that she'll go into. She'll also talk about the fact that it appears to have twin genitalia, both male and female as well. So anyway, that's it for the moment. That's the update. Please subscribe and share this video out. I want to thank Damla and Hugh Newman, JJ Ainsworth, and obviously Debbie for their contributions in this. And if you really want to read about Karahan Tepe, my book of that title is available now from all good bookstores. So I'll see you on the next one.